It started with the floorboards. I remember the way they creaked, not in the usual way old wood complains underfoot, but like something was whispering from beneath. Every step in Grandma's hallway sounded like a warning, but back then I thought it was just my imagination, or maybe the wind. The last time I visited her house was 2 years ago. I hadn't meant to stay long. She'd grown quieter in her old age, and something about the house had changed. It smelled different. Not like dust and age, no. It smelled wet. Grandma greeted me with a half smile that didn't touch her eyes. Her once kind face now looked stretched, tired. Her hands trembled as she poured tea, and her voice was barely more than a breath. "Don't go near the floorboards in the back room," she said suddenly. I paused with the teacup halfway to my lips. "Why?" Her eyes darted to the hallway and then quickly away, as if even looking toward it gave her pain. She didn't answer. That night, I stayed in the guest room across from the back hallway, the one that led to the storage room she never let anyone enter. The door was always shut. I thought it was because of the junk she kept there. But that night, I heard it. A faint tapping, then scratching. Slow, rhythmic. Tap, tap, scratch. Tap, tap, scratch. It came from the floor. I sat up in bed holding my breath. The air had turned cold and the room felt wrong. I tried to tell myself it was mice, just mice, that's all. But I'd grown up in that house. There were never mice. Grandma would have noticed. The next morning, I asked her again. "There's something under the floor, isn't there?" She didn't answer. She just stared at me, her lips slightly parted, eyes sunken. Then she said something I'll never forget. "They talk to me at night. I pretend not to hear them, but they know." That was the last time I visited her. She died last week, and now I'm back, standing in her doorway, holding the old iron key she left me. The air inside is stale, cold, and the floorboards in the hallway, they still creak. But it's not just sound. It's something deeper. Something breathing. The house hadn't changed. Same yellowed wallpaper peeling like old skin. Same crooked family portraits watching from above the stairwell. Same silence, too thick, too still. But the room, the one Grandma warned me about, it was no longer locked. The key she left me fit into every door, but this one, it was already open a crack, like someone had been waiting. I stood in front of it, holding my breath. The hallway light behind me flickered, casting my shadow into the room ahead. The floor inside was warped, buckled in strange places, like something underneath had pushed upward over the years. And in the center of the room, a carpet, small, circular, and old. It looked out of place, newer than everything else. And beneath it, a smell. Wet, metallic, sweet. I didn't want to touch it. My fingers trembled as I peeled it back, and there it was, a single loose board. It was darker than the rest, like it had absorbed something, and right in the middle, a small, rusted iron ring bolted into the wood. A handle. I didn't lift it. Not yet. Instead, I stepped back. I wanted to leave, to run, to forget Grandma's words, forget the smell, forget the way the air around that board felt colder than the rest of the room. But then, I heard it again. Tap, tap, scratch. My blood turned to ice. I wasn't moving. I wasn't tapping, I wasn't scratching, but something beneath the floor was. I backed out of the room slowly, never turning my back to the board. I slammed the door shut and locked it with the key. For hours, I sat in the kitchen trying to calm my breath. Outside, the sun set. The house darkened. Shadows grew longer. The creaking came again, this time from the hallway. Only now, it wasn't just one tap. It was many. Tap, 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 scratch, like something or some things waking up beneath. I didn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard it, like fingernails raking across old wood, slow and deliberate. Tap, tap, scratch. It wasn't a sound that wanted to be ignored. It wanted to be noticed. It wanted attention. By morning, the house smelled stronger. That wet iron scent seemed to rise from the floors themselves. I checked every pipe, every cupboard. Nothing. Everything was bone dry. Still, it lingered, heavy, sickly. I opened all the windows. The wind refused to come in. Then I noticed something strange. The oven was warm. Not hot, but warm, like it had just been used. But I hadn't cooked. I hadn't touched it. When I opened it, I didn't find pans or trays. I found a notebook, old, burnt around the edges, pages stuck together with something dark, stiff like dried glue. I peeled the first few apart with the edge of a butter knife. Grandma's handwriting, but it wasn't her usual neat script. It was messy, panicked. Some words had been scratched out violently. Others were underlined multiple times. They come when the moon wanes. Teeth beneath the boards. They whisper if you listen long enough. I shouldn't have fed them. I froze. Fed them? Another entry, dated years ago. They took my brother. He never screamed, just vanished. The boards were clean. And then another. They said they'd leave me alone if I fed them what they asked for. I thought it meant rats. I thought it meant scraps. But they wanted teeth. I dropped the notebook. Teeth. Suddenly I remembered. Grandma had dentures, but never wore them. She always said they hurt, that her real teeth still ached even though they were long gone. The sound from the hallway came again. Tap, 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 scratch. I looked up. The door to the back room was open again, but I had locked it. I didn't walk to the room. I was pulled, like something had taken hold of the back of my neck with invisible fingers and nudged me forward. My body moved, but my chest tightened with every step. The hallway stretched. The light overhead flickered, dimmer with each step. By the time I reached the door, the air was heavy, wet, like I was breathing through a sponge soaked in something thick. The carpet was gone. The loose floorboard now fully exposed, the rusted ring glinting in the morning gloom. I didn't want to touch it, but my fingers curled around the ring on their own, cold, rough, sharp. As I pulled, the board creaked, then gave way with a sickening groan. And beneath it, not dirt, not a crawl space, but a mouth. A perfectly round, fleshy opening in the earth, lined with hundreds, maybe thousands of human teeth, not just set in gums, but grown from the walls like fungus, some old and yellowed, others fresh, tiny ones, big molars, cracked incisors. Some still had blood on them, and deep inside, a tunnel, pitch black, breathing, contracting slightly, like something alive was waiting for its next meal. The smell hit me then, like rot, like copper, like something alive and hungry. Then I heard it, a voice. Not loud, just a whisper, curling through the tunnel like smoke. She promised. Where is it? She promised another. I staggered back, my spine colliding with the wall. I wanted to scream, but the sound died in my throat. The mouth shifted, not closed, not open, just watching, waiting. And then a sound from inside the tunnel. Clicking, skittering, as if something with too many legs and too many teeth was climbing upward. I didn't remember backing away. But suddenly I was at the far end of the room, pressed flat against the wall, my breath trembling in my throat like it didn't want to leave me. From the hole, the mouth, the tunnel of teeth, it crawled. Not walked, not rose, crawled. The first thing I saw was its hand. No, not a hand. A bundle of fingers, more than 5, 7, maybe 8, all wrinkled, blackened, thin like candle wax left to melt. Fingernails jagged like broken glass, dragging across the wood. Then came the face. No eyes, no lips, just a wide, wet grin stretched across where a face should be. The teeth were not its own. I recognized one, crooked and gold. It was Grandma's. It crawled forward like a spider, head turning slightly at me, though it had no eyes to see. But I knew it saw me. "She lied," it whispered, not with a voice, but with the sound of grinding molars. "She said you'd come sooner." My knees buckled. I collapsed to the floor as it dragged itself out of the hole, pulling something behind it, something wrapped in a cloth, a bundle, small, child-sized. It tossed the bundle at my feet. The cloth unraveled. I didn't want to look, but I did. Inside were teeth, hundreds of them, baby teeth, adult teeth, rotten, chipped, still bloody. One had a silver star sticker on it. I remembered it. It was mine, from when I was 6. Grandma had told me the tooth fairy took it. She lied. She fed it. The creature began crawling closer, its grin widening impossibly, rows of new teeth twitching and pushing through its gums like crops growing in fast forward. It spoke again. "You have more." And I realized my jaw hurt. I stumbled backward, choking on panic, reaching up to touch my face. My fingers brushed against my cheek, wet. I pulled my hand away, blood, and the pain. It was deep now, throbbing, like something was tugging at the roots of my teeth from the inside. The creature didn't move fast. It didn't need to. It knew I couldn't leave. It knew this was already happening. It stopped just a few feet away, its body twitching in slow, unnatural spasms, like bones realigning under skin that had forgotten what shape it was supposed to take. The grin opened wider, revealing layers. Not one mouth. Many mouths. Mouths within mouths, rows behind rows, some smiling, some whispering, some crying. And then I heard my grandma's voice from inside it. "I didn't want this for you, but you came too late." The thing leaned closer. "It's she owed us. We let her live. You were always the final payment." I screamed, but the sound came out wrong, wet, gurgled. And then I felt it. Movement. Inside my mouth. A pressure, and then a shift. My front tooth twisted. Not fell, twisted, like it was turning to face the wrong direction. I fell to the ground, clutching my face, trying to stop what I couldn't see. Behind me, the tunnel pulsed. The creature leaned in. Its breath smelled like rot and copper and something older than bone. Then it whispered, "They grow in the silence. That's why you hear them at night." The light bulb in the hallway burst. The room went black, but I still felt it, that tap, tap, scratch, inside my mouth now. Not outside, not beneath the floor, but beneath my own tongue. I ran. I don't know how. My legs were jelly, my vision blurred. The hallway spun as I crashed into walls, tripping over shadows, breathing like I was drowning in fog. But I ran. The front door wouldn't open. Of course it wouldn't. I pounded my fists against it, screamed, but something was wrong with my voice. Each cry came out like a muffled gargle, thick and wet, like there were fingers crawling up my throat, pressing against the inside of my lips. I stumbled into the bathroom. The mirror didn't lie. My mouth was moving, not like talking, like chewing, all on its own. Lips twitching, jaw clicking side to side, even though I wasn't doing it, even though I was frozen, watching myself in horror. I pried open my mouth with trembling hands and saw it. New teeth, tiny, too many, growing behind my molars, pushing forward, crowding together like a swarm. Some were black, some were yellow, some weren't even human. One was triangular, jagged like a shark's, and I could feel more forming under my tongue, buried in the soft flesh. Something was nesting in me. Behind me, the hallway creaked. Tap, tap, scratch. I turned back, knowing what I'd see. It was standing now, not crawling. Its limbs had lengthened, bones stretching far beyond anything human. Its mouth, if you could call it that, hung open like a tunnel, lips torn at the edges as if it had never been made to close. But worst of all, it was smiling with my teeth, the ones I'd lost when I was little, the ones I've forgotten I ever had. It reached toward me, whispering, "You don't lose them, you give them." I slammed the bathroom door shut, twisting the lock with fingers slick with sweat and blood. From the other side, silence. No footsteps, no scratching, only that suffocating stillness, like the house was holding its breath. I backed away from the mirror. The light above me flickered, then dimmed to a low, sickly orange. The walls looked closer, the tiles somehow darker, and then something dripped. I looked down at the sink. The faucet hadn't been on. The pipes weren't leaking. But from the drain, a voice, not spoken, hissed. "We waited. We grew. Now it's your turn." The drain pulsed. A faint breath of warm air came from below, carrying that now familiar stench. Wet metal, old rot, and milk teeth. I leaned in, helpless. Inside, beneath the steel, I saw gums, pink, raw, swollen, and rows of tiny white teeth turning slowly, grinding against each other like millstones. I jerked away, but too late. A sound burst from the pipes, like chewing, amplified through a throat that stretched the entire house. My ears rang, my nose bled. Then the mirror cracked. I looked up. My reflection was smiling, but I wasn't. It stared back at me, head tilted unnaturally, mouth twitching wider and wider until the corners nearly reached its ears. Then it whispered, "You're the root, we are the bloom." Suddenly, my jaw dislocated. No pain, just a sickening pop. My mouth opened wider than it should, and from the back of my throat, I felt something move. Not up, outward, as if my body had become the new tunnel. I collapsed to the floor. My hands clutched at my jaw, now dangling loose, bone grinding against bone like dry sticks in the wind. But worse than the pain was the pressure inside, something pushing through, stretching the soft tissue at the roof of my mouth, forcing its way forward like a seed finally sprouting. And it wasn't just growing inside me, it was knitting me into it. Veins around my neck pulsed unnaturally, dark beneath the skin. My gums itched and bled as new rows of teeth emerged, tiny ones, sideways, curling in spirals. Some fell out immediately, others stuck, writhing. I could hear them. Click, clack, whisper. Every tooth had a voice. Some screamed, some begged, some laughed. And above it all, one voice rose clearer than the rest. Grandma's. They only want what we bury. We give them what falls from us, and in return, they grow. I dragged myself out of the bathroom, spitting blood and broken enamel. The hallway twisted before me like a serpent, walls breathing, wallpaper pulsing as if the house had grown lungs. And the creature, the thing wearing my childhood teeth, stood at the end of it. Taller now, hands dragging along the floor, grin wider, chest heaving with something too many-legged crawling inside. It opened its mouth, not to speak, but to offer. Inside were more mouths, and inside those, more teeth. Teeth with names carved into them. Mine, my brother's, my mother's, even ones I didn't recognize, etched in languages I'd never seen. The creature beckoned with a slow, clawed hand, and I knew. It wasn't just a monster. It was a garden, fed over generations, watered with fear, blooming now, with me. I don't remember crawling, only the wet sound my knees made as they dragged along the floor. The boards weren't wood anymore, they were tongue-soft, pulsing gently beneath my skin, slying with every inch I moved. The house was alive now, and it was chewing. The walls creaked in rhythm, the wallpaper curling like molted skin. Pictures of my family twisted, eyes gouged out, mouths torn open, their smiles stretching too wide. All of them smiling with my teeth. I reached the back room. It was waiting. The floorboard, the ring, the hole, open, hungry. The creature was no longer beside it. It was it. Its limbs had sunken into the floor, its mouth stretched impossibly wide, fusing into the edges of the tunnel. It had become the passage itself. Grandma's voice returned, dry, hollow, inside my head now. You were born here. The house marked you when you swallowed your first tooth in sleep. That was the pact. I looked down at my hands. They were changing, flesh hardening, nails blackening, knuckles splitting, blooming into clusters of tiny teeth. I screamed, but all that came out was a whisper. "We remember." The mouth yawned wider. It didn't want me to run. It wanted me to give in, to become part of the root system, to grow from inside the thing that had fed on my family for generations. I stood on shaking legs and stepped forward. The gums of the tunnel caressed my ankles, my knees. They welcomed me. They knew me. I looked up one last time. The walls of the house smiled, not with warmth, but with recognition. Now the house is quiet again. Visitors still come, curious neighbors, realtors, the occasional niece or nephew. And at night, if you listen closely, tap, tap, scratch. The floorboards remember, and they're always hungry.